Why would they do that?
This is what I'm saying. Right here,
I don't believe you.
I just don't see.
What you've seen and what you can prove is two different stories.
And they just think I'm a call. It's not as old as this date says it is.
I don't care what you say. I don't care what you tell me, but I know you're full of.
What the f are you talking about?
Son, you're way out of line.
Basically, I'm just trying to tell you I'm not bull. And they generally go for right around $1,500.
All right.
I'd offer you $1,000.
I don't know what you're smoking, man, but that's not gonna work, so I'm gonna take my stuff and leave. That guy.
It is always a thrill for the Harrisons to see Rob back at the pawn shop. He is a true gun enthusiast, and it looks like he has brought another firearm to sell. He meets Rick and his dad, hoping to strike a deal for his Savage Navy revolver. Rick says it is an ugly item, but his dad disagrees. Now, we would not want to jump to any conclusions on how this would end. So, let's see how it all unfolds, shall we?
Yeah, this is really cool. I've never actually seen one of these things in person. I've never even had one in the store. As long as they could make it different, they could make it and sell it, and the government would buy it, because the government would buy any gun at this point. Fire with your index finger.
The thought was that was a good mechanism because you could fire them a little quicker.
I really don't see the advantage.
All right, it's amusing that Rick isn't a fan of this revolver. His dad, who seems obsessed, is however convinced that a Civil War relic like this could fetch good money. Rick is still uncertain about it, and he thinks bringing in an expert will be a great help.
Just wants to tilt down one of the goofiest designs.
That's why I love it.
These two fools don't know what they're talking about. Anything to do with the U.S. Navy is high class.
I hope he won't be disappointed. Craig arrives to lend his expertise. He reveals that the gun is one of the first double-action revolvers. You may think it fires accurately, but that's not necessarily the case. What else does Craig have to say?
Yeah, the guys call me down when they get an antique firearm that they want to know more about. They want me to evaluate its condition, a value estimation, that sort of thing. This is what I would call a proto-double action. It's one of the first double-action revolvers, and the concept was that you could shoot a lot more quickly.
It turns out the revolver might actually be collectible. However, Rick is still obviously bothered by the condition of the gun. Could it possibly be a restoration or not? Does it affect the price? Craig should have answers.
The Savage Navy is an interesting firearm because it's a technology that, while it led to the double-action revolver, the idea did not work very well.
It looks all there. I mean, there isn't any major damage to it besides the finish more or less being gone.
Hopefully, the expert will go in with the evaluation, and it may seem as though it doesn't meet Rob's expectations. It wouldn't be a good deal without a bit of bargaining. Let's see how it plays out.
A bad idea means they don't make very many, and that's one of the ingredients for something being very collectible. If you've got a Civil War collection, you have to have one of these guns.
$800, Rick.
No, that's not going to happen.
No, I'm thinking more like $1,250.
You know, I was hoping to get about $1,800 for the gun.
Here, we are about to feast our eyes on an item with a rich historical backstory, a sword from the Trent Affairs. This item should leave Rick marveled. As much as they are related to civil wars, Rick will undoubtedly be intrigued. Why don't we see his reaction?
God, this is pretty amazing.
To James Mason,
Lest we forget
the Trent.
The American Civil War was going to hit England a lot harder than you might think because they were not going to be able to get caught.
Prepare to be schooled on this piece of history. It revolves around America and England, with James Mason and John Slidell as crucial figures. What a loaded piece of history. Now let's move on to the main agenda.
If an American ship boards an English ship in international waters, it's the same thing as invading their country. The Trent Affair might not be as well known as major Civil War battles, but historically, we were this close to getting in a war with England while we're fighting against our own brothers here at home.
Yes, everything is in good condition, but would people collect this kind of item? It can only reach its targeted market when people are grounded in its history. Will Rick proceed to take on his offer?
To me, it sounds high. Okay? Because a nerd like me, and obviously a nerd like you, know exactly what the Trent is. 99% of the people in this world do not. And I'm thinking like $5,000.
Oh.
Now, this next item is fascinating. It is not Bob's first time at the store, so let's find out what he has for them. He approaches Rick with a Civil War cavalry saber, claiming it is authentic, but Rick is yet to verify. So let's see his take on it.
That's incredible shape. Almost too good. I mean, if it was actually used in the Civil War, they would have put an edge on it, and an edge has never been put on this. Really odd that it's not sharpened up.
Okay, Rick seems tempted, but at the same skeptical about it. He has his concerns. However, this seller wants $2,000 for this item.
That's retail, so if you go open up a store, that's what you can probably get out of it.
It's a pretty valuable sword, I believe.
Sometimes I feel like a broken record. I can't buy things for retail prices. If I bought and sold and everything for the same price, I'd be out of business.
Okay, I got a buddy who deals in Civil War memorabilia. I'd like to have him come in and check it out.
I wonder what is running in Rick's mind, but he wants to bring in an examiner to clarify things. Even I will be concerned. It looks too good to be true. It all comes down to the main question. Is it a reproduction or not?
Swords like this, in this kind of condition, so I can understand your caution.
I know it looks too good to be true, but there's an expert in there and he'll confirm it. I feel pretty good. I'm a little nervous about it, but not a lot.
The majority of the reproductions and fakes are coming out of India.
So far, so good. Things are turning out well, but not for long because Rick is still bothered. What could be the issue? Will the expert opinion sway Rick? I'm curious. Bob is happy with the appraisal.
Military issue.
What about not having an edge on the sword?
This is exactly how they were issued, with a blunt edge. It was really more of a personal preference if you wanted to have a sharpened edge, because on a horse, these swords were held off to the side, and if at a full gallop charge, if you can imagine just clipping people, it would really inflict some damage.
But at the end of the day, it's Rick's call. Will he take this item or pass?
In an auction setting, I would say anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000.
All right, Sean, thanks for coming in.
Absolutely, Rick. Anytime.
Am I happy this sword is real? Yes. My only concern now is, how much is it going to cost me?
We know it's worth up to $4,000 at a good auction.
Well, that's just it. He said $2,000 to $4,000 in auction, which means between $2,000 and $4,000, okay?
Here, this man comes by the pawn shop with a WWI Marine helmet. His grandfather initially owned this item. You should know how things make Rick giddy. Let's get on to it then. What does Rick think about it?
The most hellish wars we ever had was the first war where there was chemical warfare. You see the old movies and everything, and you see the Germans using it. We used it too.
I didn't know that.
The problem was, when you used the chemical warfare, we killed as many Americans as we killed Germans with our own gas. All of a sudden the wind would change. You're killing your own guys.
I can't wait to see his reaction. This item will surely spark a conversation about the brutal events of World War I. But what role did this helmet play? Let's find out.
9.9% guarantee that. The value of these things is really determined usually on that logo right there. Which division of the forces is on the front of it. This stuff is major important. What I don't know though, is this emblem supposed to be here?
So different in the US Army had different logos, each with its own value. I wonder what this helmet's logo signifies. To determine the worth, Ricks believes the best thing to do now is to call an expert.
Let me call on somebody who does. He'll tell us what's going on and what it's worth. Okay, great. I'll be right back.
All right, thanks.
Original World War I stuff is getting harder and harder to find. I'm just crossing my fingers it's legit, because people are always faking this stuff. So this is what I called you about.
Yeah, it looks like a U.S. Marine Corps helmet.
The expert goes in for a look. There is no doubt that it is a World War I item. He points out that the helmet was used for protection. But most importantly, let's find out what this particular helmet logo says.
That's the Eagle Globe and Anchor Marine Corps emblem above it.
All right, so are the Marine ones a lot rarer than the Army ones?
Marine Corps ones are a lot rarer and a lot more desirable, which means people fake them a lot more. Some people are really good at faking this stuff.
That's exactly what my concerns are. Someone faked that thing.
I'm curious to know, is it authentic or not? Everyone is dying to know, most especially Chris. So, what does the expert say?
And the way you can tell is World War I era, the globe had both the latitude and longitude lines. Later on, they only had the latitude. And the paint looks good, everything looks good to me, and good age.
Well, now that it's genuine, the next thing is the evaluation. Chris might probably walk away with $1,500 after initially expecting $500. Excellent! I hope Rick doesn't disappoint him too quickly. Let's keep watching to see what happens.
The expert told me it was worth up to $1,500. I was very excited because, I walked in only wanting, $500 for it. So I thought, gosh, this is my payday.
Thanks a lot, man. You're the best.
Sure thing. Thank you.
I was already pretty sure the helmet was genuine.
Up next, this man walks in with binoculars for sale. I'm sure it is more than that. What are we dealing with? A WWI Field Sniper Unit binoculars. Well, that sounds fascinating. Guess what? Chris knows so much about this.
It's a set of field glasses from World War I used by the Lovett Scouts from the original ghillie unit. They're a sniper unit.
Definitely cool, man. These are probably 1900-ish, probably German, which is funny because you have an officer carrying German binoculars fighting the Germans.
Nice. Let's hear from him, and obviously from Rick too. It turns out that this item was owned by Alex J. Campbell, a member of Lovat Scout. That's quite interesting.
I was able to find a little bit about him.
Okay.
I confirmed that he was in the Lovett Scouts.
Okay. The Lovett Scouts, they're a Scottish regiment but they were part of the English Army. Basically, they were forward scouts that were also snipers. So they had the lousy job of sneaking past enemy lines and sending back reports about what's going on. And a lot of times there was a specific target.
What else? Rick sure knows about this scout. He finds this item interesting. But the real question is, does it have any value if bought?
But badass doesn't always equal big buck. If that was the case, I'd be a billionaire. Just kidding. And how much you want for him?
I'd like to get 800, and I'll say why. I've looked it up on some of the auction sites. Field glasses from the era are going between $800 and $1,200.
It's hard to say. The fact that it's German-made adds another layer of complexity. Can Rick make anything out of this item? Keep watching to see how it unfolds.
It's neat that they're from the Level Scouts, but I don't think I could sell them.
Really?
Because if they're Burnhams, I could sell them and make money. If they were Zeiss, I could sell them and make money. But if we don't have any of those combinations, then I don't think you're really going to be able to get anything out of them, to tell you the truth.
When customers come in without any knowledge about the item they want to sell, it puts them on a thin thread because they might not know what to bargain on. This time, we have not one but 2 helmets for sale. How will Rick handle this?
What do we have here?
I have no idea.
Okay, these are German helmets.
What are the spikes for?
Or they'd put the helmets on their head, they'd bend over and run into people. That's how they fought wars. You can tell this helmet is from early World War I because it's made out of leather.
Trust Chum to crack us with his jokes. Why don't we find out what Rick has to say about these helmets? The spike on the helmet makes it more remarkable. Anything from the World War will have Rick's mouth running.
Looks like the hat the monkey wears when he rides a little tricycle around the circus.
For thousands of years, militaries spent lots of time braiding, marching, and doing things for show. Helmets like this were mostly decorative. They definitely weren't bulletproof, and the spike on top was just for looks.
Sure does. Rick moves on to examine the item, but he is unsure about its worth because they are 2 different helmets with different ranks. He calls in an expert in military collectibles.
I got a friend who specializes in military collectibles, and this is something he definitely deals in. So let me get him down here, and he'll know everything there is to know about him, okay?
That'd be great.
You just don't see old German military items that much anymore. Collectors love pairs, and hopefully, they'll both be valuable.
Okay, how much does this expert know about this? Surprisingly, a lot. He gives us an insight into the difference between both helmets. Oh no, a repair? Is that good or bad?
You can see where it looks like there's been some repairs done on this. It looks like it's been restitched. Very common for the stitching to come undone. The American GIs would pick these up on the battlefield. You might take it off a dead German. You might trade with a prisoner of war. But the pickle hobs these days, the leather tends to wear out. There's nothing you can really do about it.
Luckily, it doesn't matter. Now the question remains, how much are the helmets worth? Let's find out. How well will this duo bargain?
$850, $950.
Okay, and what's this one going for?
This one, even though it's been touched up, I would consider it worth between $1,000 and $1,250.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Paul. You're the
Thanks,
best,
Rick.
man.
Good seeing you again.
I think 2,000 would be a good place to start.
I'm going to be lucky to get that.
In this scene, Chum is pleased to see this customer. Why so? Oh boy, it's more gross stuff. He wonders what she brings today at the pawn shop.
What is that?
This is a Civil War era syringe used to treat the soldiers' syphilis and gonorrhea.
Is that a urethra syringe?
Yes, it was a syringe that went into the urethra.
Okay, it looks like a Civil War era syringe used for treating gonorrhea and chlamydia. Disgusting, right? Rick sure has a lot of things to say, but Chum seems pretty much interested.
Groups got bit by the love bug. Prostitutes would set up their camp right next to the military camp. It was really bad. And doctors were trying to come up with various cures. I know that. They would put like boric acid in that thing.
The caustic nature of it was supposed to hopefully kill everything in its path.
Yikes. Rick further examines the stuff, but even the sight of it is enough to make you gag. Chum seems to be feeling the same way. The more Rick talked, the more Chum got irritated.
Insert it and push.
Is that a cover or is that the actual needle?
Well, it wasn't a needle because this wasn't injected. This went into the tip of your thing. During the Civil War, the treatments for venereal disease were downright medieval compared to what they do today.
Oh boy. Moving on to the next phase, would people want to collect this creepy stuff? You can see why she is desperate to sell it off. Will she be able to make Rick take this? Well, I don't know.
Tough sell, it's a weird sell. You know, how about 160 bucks?
You know, I agree with you. It is creepy, and I want it out of my house. I think 160 is fine.
Okay, we got a deal.
Okay.
Now Alan shows up with an item in hopes of having it authenticated. He also wants a good deal for this Union Soldier WWI jacket.
If I could get at least $500 out of it, if it is authentic, I think that would be a great find for us.
Well, it's definitely cool.
Should you know anything about it?
Actually, I don't. It was just in a bag of clothes that we got in, so I have no idea where it came from or any of the history on it.
That's great. Rick enlightens Alan about the war and also the uniform, but Rick sure does have his worries about this jacket. Merely looking at it, you know it's in perfect condition, which raises Rick's suspicion.
Concern about it is it just looks too good to be true. There's not one moth hole in it, and I mean, there's really no scuffs. If this uniform is real, it could be worth some serious money. But this thing is in amazing shape for its age. I know there's a lot of people who make these for reenactments, so I have to be careful.
It's really confusing. However, Rick needs to have Mark stop by to verify if it is the real deal or not. He attests to its perfect state, and now he understands why Rick is worried.
Anytime you have a Civil War uniform, anything like that, and it's in perfect shape, yes, you do want to question it. There are a lot of reproductions, there are a lot of costumes that have been made. In order to tell whether this is real, what I'm looking for is...
Moving on, the expert digs deeper to check the extent of its genuineness because there could be a lot of fakes out there. Civil War uniforms vary. I wonder what we are dealing with here. Anyway, let's find out.
This doesn't show any sign of ever having shoulder boards on it. Even for the fact it doesn't have the loops, doesn't appear to have ever had shoulder boards, I think it's real. I think what you have is a Civil War Model 1854 uniform jacket.
Now that the expert has given us the full details, what is the next move? Will Alan strike a deal with Rick? Stay glued to find out.
Okay, so what are you looking to get out of it?
We talking $1,000 or?
I really believe in an auction I can get $1,500, $2,000 out of this thing.
Wow, that's impressive.
But there's a lot of fees with an auction.
Well, sure.
And I have to make a little bit for my time, effort. $750?
Go $850?
I'll tell you what. I'll go $850.
This particular seller, Jason, comes in with a Confederate Civil War ribbon, which is also his family heirloom. He approaches Corey and gives more details about the item.
Great-grandfather for all his battles that he was in the Civil War. This was a letter my great-great-grandfather hand-wrote. One of my great-aunts typed it exactly the way he wrote it.
I participated in all the battles from Chickamauga to the surrender.
Well, we are all ears. Corey examines this ribbon and shares some information about it. The fact that the seller wants $700 for this without knowing its actual value is risky. Anyways, Rick wants to get someone in for a proper examination.
Be honest with you, I don't have no idea what it's worth, and I really don't know how rare it is. Do you mind if I give a friend of mine a call? When it comes to historical items like this, he can kind of explain to me a little bit better what it is.
That sounds wonderful.
All right, I'll go give him a call.
Okay.
Sounds good. What does the expert have to say in this situation? Trust Mark to give all the detailed analysis without leaving any stone unturned.
I'm guessing that's the Battle of Manassas. On the Union side, we called it Bull Run. The interesting thing, when you look at battles in the Civil War, the Union named battles after either a creek or a river or a mountain that was close by. The South named battles after the closest town.
Yes, he doesn't disappoint. What is his take on this? He goes ahead to assist Corey with the bugging concerns he has. Well, there might be an audience for this kind of item.
It's a membership badge from the United Confederate Veterans.
Okay.
The United Confederate Veterans was basically a veterans organization. When you joined, you got a membership badge. The other side, though, was the memoriam side. You were dealing with an older group of men. They were dying off.
But unfortunately, the ribbon is not in a good state, and oh boy, you know what that means. Let's find out what happens next, shall we?
$700.
All right. It's pretty much a VFW membership pass.
Confederate memorabilia is hard to find these days. I think it's pretty unique, to be honest with you.
It's gonna be really, really unique to you because it's your great-great-grandfather.
Right.
To me, as a guy that's gonna buy it and then try to make a profit on it, it's just not here.
Moving on, a lady comes with a US flag from a WWI plane. It was owned by her grandfather. Shockingly, it has been in her family's possession for 95 years. Why does she want to sell it now?
I came to the pawn shop today to sell my grandfather's flag, which he cut from a World War I airplane. I'd like to sell it because it's been sitting around for 95 years.
and I'd like it to go to somebody that really would like to do
It's questionable. How does Dana back up her claim? Because Rick and Corey wouldn't merely believe her father had this flag cut off from a plane. That's aside, Rick is moved by this piece. I'm curious to know why.
So you have the flag in the article. You got anything else to back up your story?
I have these dog tags, and one of these dog tags actually says Lieutenant Quentin Roosevelt on the back and George Pine, my father's name, on the front.
To think that this flag was off one of the planes in his squadron is just an amazing part of history.
There is no doubt that it is a historical piece. How much does the seller want for this? How well will they negotiate on the price? Catch up for more.
So what were you looking to do with it?
I'd like to sell it.
Okay. Did you have a number in mind?
$7,500. I did have it appraised, and it came in at $10,000.
It is a one-of-a-kind item, but you're gonna praise it for anything. So I can offer you like $5,000.
A man approaches Rick and Chum with a vintage World War I poster to sell. Chum is tired of seeing this particular guy at the store. Imagine coming for the 5th time. A yard sale finds Rick's opinion on this poster.
We wanted to get in this war. It wasn't our fight, it was the fight in Europe. And then it was the sinking of the Lusitania. A German U-boat sunk it. The second that ship was sunk, the opinions of the American people flipped 180 degrees.
Okay, Chum does an excellent job with his jokes. Let's hear from Rick. The vintage poster explains more about warfare.
Cast that World War I, up to that point, was the deadliest war in the history of mankind. It was trench warfare, machine guns, chemical warfare on both sides. For years, this war was just fought on muddy, disgusting trenches on both sides. No one could make any forward ground.
Now we have heard enough, let's get down to the worth. Imagine offering $100 to this seller. That's disappointing.
How much you want for it?
Is it $400 cool?
No. The coolest one ever made and the most expensive one?
This man comes in with a military saddle that was used during the World War. He meets Corey and goes on to share more details about the saddle.
Cavalry and the artillery both. It's named after George McClellan, and he was responsible when he wasn't in conflict, either in the Mexican-American War or the Civil War, to design and redesign their equipment, and this is the final version of that saddle.
Interesting. What does Corey think about this? It might seem an incomplete saddle, but Corey is tempted to get it for his dad. He wants to have Mark take a look at it.
So let me give a buddy of ours a call so he can come down and take a look at it. Do you mind if I give him a call real quick?
No, go ahead.
All right, hang out. I'll be right back, all right?
Okay.
So the McClellan saddle is the classic U.S. military saddle. George McClellan came up with this design.
Great. Now that the examiner is here, let's see what he has to say about this McClellan saddle. After noting that they were used in the military, he further assesses the item.
The inspector's mark looks like 1918, which would put it at World War I. It's missing the quarter straps, it's missing the cinch, so it's missing what it needs to actually be on the horse. I think if your dad was buying it to use it.
Oh boy, it seems utterly useless because it is incomplete. I can't see Rick using an incomplete saddle. Will Corey take this item or not?
Lizzie wants to sit on a saddle tree in the corner.
He's probably better off that way. Mark, I appreciate you coming down, man.
Not a problem.
So what are you looking to get for?
I think $325.
You know, I don't doubt it's worth it. Would you take 2 for it?
Would you go to $225?
I'll do 225.
Yeah.
All right,
We'll
Joe.
do that.
Come with me, do some paperwork.
Next up is a man with a British poster for sale. He wants to sell because he and his wife need the money, but will they get anything from it?
Been collecting military for years. I bought a huge collection of British First War and Victorian items, and this poster is part of it. I set this aside because the wife liked it.
Let's see. Rick further gives his own share of what he knows about the poster. It entails laid down rules and regulations made by the British. If Rick says it checks out, then it does.
I mean, it's all legit. It's the right paper. You can see how it's aged a little bit. And also, the fake ones, they always put a year on it. So people go, look, it's 100 years old.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
How much you want for it?
I was figuring around like 175.
All right, it's now the moment for bargaining. Watch as these two duos battle for a fair bargain.
Give you $50 for it.
How about 75?
I'd give you $50. I'm being really generous here.
I guess I'll accept your offer.
All right, we got a deal.
Sure, thank you.
I'll meet you right over there and I'll get you paid.
Okay, great.